It looks like it might kind of be going that way. My only hope is that people are going to realize how utterly unbearable it is. And then there will be just absolute slaughter.
So my question is this: how fast can you educate people that this is bad? Because it seems like there's an equivalent amount of lies they're trying to say, hey, this is actually, it's all fine, guys. We're just cutting funding for kids for leukemia because it's fine, guys. Don't worry about it. And so, like, because it seems like what you're doing is, sorry, I'm on a new medication, so I'm a little scatterbrained. It seems like what you're trying to do is combat the stupidity, but how do you know you're going faster than the stupid? Because it sounds like the stupid is always going faster. And
what is the speed of stupid?
Yeah. And how do you break the stupid barrier?
Honestly, I feel like if I devoted any of my life to trying to think about that, I would just go I would become miserable. Like, there are people, even like famous people, like actors. There's one, I can't remember who it is, but he's an older dude. He's a well-known actor, but like he tweets like 10,000 times a year, and literally the only thing he tweets is like anti-Trump stuff. And like, that's a guy who's convinced himself that he's a hero or something like that, but he's just literally ruining his own life. No, it's not George Takei, but because he does do that. But I don't think George Takei is as prolific in it. I can't remember who it is, but yeah. So I just tell the truth. I try to do it as much as I can, but I don't ever think about, okay, analytically, I heard Trump say this the other day, so I need to make 3 posts on social media that debunk it. I will go completely miserable if I do that. And the other thing is, if I do that, then I'm just a sheep. Donald Trump says jump and I say how high. So I'm not good. And it's it's not just politics. It's like all the anti-science stuff, which is what I mainly try to do. Like I don't go on the Answers in Genesis website. I don't, to see what they're doing, to be like, well, they came out with this new thing. How will I disprove or debunk that or whatever? Because I don't want to be miserable, I guess.
Do you think, because this is one thing that I always probe you as an educator, because it seems like you do a fun mix of both insulting people and educating. So,
oh yeah, I love a good probing.
Who doesn't? Especially no, I'm kidding. Because one of the things that I was thinking about was narrativizing. One of the things that Russian bots use really well is they wield a narrative to convince people that this is the happenings of the world. Do you think that we should narrativize to a certain degree more subjects such as physics? Like, when we look at the earliest forms of math problems, they were all word problems because everyone was a weenie or something.
I try to do that but it's only with the only subjects I can really do that with are astronomy and evolution, because they actually have really good stories behind them. I try it always drives me crazy, but there are other things. I mean, like when I teach my chemistry students about the properties of atoms, what I used to do is I used to spend like 2 days just telling the story of how we learned what each subatomic particle is and their properties and the experiments behind them, because it's so cool. But what I learned quickly is the only way to do that is just to lecture at them, and quite a lot of them don't care. And also, the amount of shit you have to cover in 1 year really doesn't let you do that kind of stuff. It's pretty unfortunate.
I wonder, and this is something I'm curious about, or your thoughts on, the idea of keeping a meta-narrative So, for example, when teaching chemistry, I like the idea of Mendeleev because he was a crazy Russian guy whose parents fell apart in front of him due to overwork. And so he creates the periodic table. He boils, he breaks down, but more importantly, he puts back together. His is a story of suffering, one where he says, things fall apart, but I can put them back together. And that simple kind of meta narrative goes throughout chemistry, where the idea is it's not just about breaking apart, it's also about synthesizing. We can decompose and we can synthesize. And how many ways can we do that?
That's cool. I didn't even know that about Mendeleev. I just tell his story. Well, I just tell the story of him developing the first periodic table and intentionally leaving blank spots in it, which was a genius insight. But I didn't know that. But no, yeah, that's cool. There have been, I don't know if I'm going to, I'm not going to be able to think of anything off the top of my head, but there are, when I teach units, it's like a unit is like a whole basically subject matter. So like in earth science, there's the fossil unit, there's the radioactive unit, there's the astronomy unit. I'm a unit, you know.
Debatable.
And so and so sometimes there is either like a story or a principle that comes at the very beginning that I keep referring back to, because and then we'll do something new and I'll say, and remember, that's because blankety blank. You know, I can't, like I said, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I do that. I would like to, you know, one of these days. I don't know what the next book I'll write is or if I will write one, but I really do want to write a science book, like one that you theoretically could, like a student could theoretically use and like do well on any test and do well on any like national or state standardized test as well.
Oh, could I ask?
But I want to make it. But I want to make it. I want to make it interesting, and it'll. I love narratives. When I created my video curriculum, I always told stories when I did that. Go ahead.
Yeah, with that telling of stories, I think a good way to do that would be the science of the skeptic, where the idea would be you could have all these kind of bootleg, cheap experiments you could do to prove little things, and you can build an overall narrative of science where it's like, hey, this is the F around and find out method, except this is the safest way to F around and find out. Because previous people effed around this way, and they found out in a very, very permanent way. But you've effed around, and you've found out without permanent damage. And that's kind of the key to science. How do you hurt yourself? Or how do you learn without hurting yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, like Emperor Xi, he took mercury tablets, and then he died. So kids, the lesson is get peasants to take your mercury for you and see what it does to you. Or to them before you take it.
And now we have animal testing.
Hooray!
Yeah, but I think that's like an interesting way, because I think viewing science as a way to reduce suffering and that's it, is I think is a very interesting way to view it. Because I've been viewing it that way recently, and I realize there's a lot of, it's weird to call these people smart anymore, and it feels more like we're calling these people are just people with something to prove. For example, Einstein is a survivor of the Holocaust. And so he went all around the world once he was recognized as a genius, trying to show the genius of other people. You might not know this, but the boson is actually named after someone who is a brown guy. His name's Bosch. And they just anglicized his name. So Dirac, when he named the boson, the force-carrying particle, the thing that makes things move, the thing that we can see and detect, after Bosch, he called it the boson because he didn't know how to speak brown people names.
I didn't know that. That's pretty funny.
Einstein is. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say we've Anglicized, or however you say that, quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like even we've even done it to white people. Christopher Columbus, that wasn't his name. His name was Cristoforo Colombo. And then, but the Latinized version of his name is Christophorus Columbus, and then the Anglicanized version of the Latinized version of his given name is Christopher Columbus. So those facts and more can be found in my new book, Facts That Aren't True. Popular myths, misconceptions, old wives' tales, and rumors. I have 2 things about Christopher Columbus in here. I might have gotten that wrong. I think I got his name part wrong, though. Or right. It's in the book. I guess I could look it up real quick since I don't have anything else to do. Albert Einstein's in here. People think that he failed math. He didn't. He was really good at math.
Funny enough, the things he was best at were math and music, or otherwise known as measure theory. Measure theory is actually key to music, and it's key to math, and it's key to both special and general relativity. The type of math he learned was actually a math that existed long ago. It was called Riemannian geometry, but he showed the use in it. A friend came to Einstein and said, "Hey, I see what you're trying with general relativity. I think this man's math could help you." And Einstein said, "That looks too complicated. Why would I ever use this?" And then he eventually used it.
So kids, whenever you, his name was Cristoforo Colombo. Sometime before he set sail on his main voyage, he changed his name to, I forgot about this, Cristobal de Colon. Christopher Columbus is the Anglicization of Christophorus Columbus, the Latin translation of his birth name. So the dude's had 4 names. That's wild.
Actually, here's a bit of a recommendation for next book that might be very interesting about science. Moments of Empathy Around the World. Listen, this is off the top of the dome. I think the ADHD medication is working.
Hooray.
But there's a lot of things that are co-discovered around the world. For example, Pascal's triangle was discovered multiple times before Pascal by other people. And so it seems like there's certain concepts that are very human that we just like come across because we seem to naturally like certain things. And I think it's very interesting to show how science isn't one central thing. It's a decentralized idea of F around and find out. And how do I do it as safely as possible? I.e., feed peasants mercury pills.
Yeah. Well, peasants have to serve some role in society. And why not experimentation?
Tell me at any point if you have more guests in the box. I can always drop down.
I don't yet. How the hell do I have 36 people watching this? I mean, I don't get big numbers, but I usually have a couple hundred. What the hell? It's daylight savings. That shouldn't be an excuse. International Women's Day was yesterday. I don't know why that would be an excuse either, but it's not today. I don't know. Everybody's watching the Nuggets Thunder game, apparently.
Is it okay if I probe your mind a bit more as an educator and / like your plans? Because I do like watching your stuff every once in a while, but I sometimes get very confused by the direction, and I don't know if it's because I'm stupid or if there's no direction.
Yeah, probe away.
Yeah, so when it comes to narrativizing stories and book writing, do you kind of go for an overall narrative? Because I feel like I do when I'm teaching or tutoring. What I usually do is what I call the sitcom cycle, where the idea is I start off with some sort of weird, unrelated story, but then it all wraps back around, and you're like, wait, that story was a summary or a thesis on the entire idea, just told as an allegory. It's kind of like Newton's sitting under the tree and an apple falls. Why doesn't the moon fall? I feel like one thing that's left out of that story that's really important is Newton was standing on the shoulder of soldiers of giants. Wow, that was a word that I almost got out. Which is Galileo, his work was specifically postulating that all things fell at the same rate. But if all things fall at the same rate, like Galileo said, the moon should be crushing me by now. It does not seem to be falling at the same rate. And so he tried to figure out why things fall at different rates. Because if they truly all fall at the same rate, then there should be some sort of special conserved fallingness. And that's what momentum became.
Right.
And then he could measure the falling factors as mass using spring masses, spring scales. And because he was an alchemist, he could standardize the spring using a handful of different elements. All of this builds like a new story. And I think we forget the individual components of the story just to tell we're missing the forest, or we're missing the trees for the forest, in a sense, the kind of the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, for like my YouTube videos, I mean, most of the stuff I put out, they're informal conversations. So there's no narrative really in mind. Sometimes when we get into something really specific, like evolution or whatever, there's something I start with that I keep referencing to and that I'll go back to, like the predictive model of uh, the the sequence of fossils in the fossil record later being confirmed by radiometric dating, or the taxonomic groups later being confirmed by genetics. But yeah, for the most part, with the impromptu conversations I have, that doesn't really happen. When I'm teaching, I mean, I've been out of the game for for almost a whole school year now, but there it's weird. There's kind of a process to it. It's I don't really do standards-based learning, but I kind of do at the same time. But also I typically focus on what we call like backwards design. I take the assessment that I know they're going to have in a few weeks or whatever, and I make sure that I'm emphasizing stuff from that. What I like to do is, if I've been teaching at this place for a few years, I look at the results from last year and I look at what they did poor in, and I say to myself, okay, obviously you did a bad job of teaching that, or that's just something really difficult. So we're going to overemphasize that and not worry too much about these other things. But there is sort of, I feel like I'm just talking about what I talked about earlier. There is sort of an underlying thing that I will keep coming back to when I teach them as well. It's stuff that I either try to write on the board, or their little phrases or concepts that I just keep telling them over and over and over again. Like, I don't know, when you teach how to draw molecules, like create Lewis structures and all of that, it's I spend literally 2 months straight saying it's all about getting 8 valence electrons. And you wouldn't believe how you can say that every single day for 2 months and half your class still just won't get it no matter what you do. But so
the
those
thing that I kind of actually, there's a quick comment I want to make on that, because one thing I realized while tutoring, some people, like there's a fundamentally different way they understand things. Like one thing that I thought was really funny was one time to teach a kid negative numbers, I had to teach him vectors. He understood vectors easier than negative numbers. So we jumped up to vectors, and then I said, okay, negative numbers are vectors, but you can only go forward and backward. And he's like, oh, that makes perfect sense, because he liked playing around and running around and doing plans on soccer field or sports. And so there's like, it feels like there's an intuitive way people think about things. And sometimes you just have to find the story that they, click with. And this seems like an impossible task given the modern way teaching works, where you were kind of given like a class of people you have to teach. It feels like it would work better with, there's a thing that a teacher of mine once did. He called it a reverse classroom, where essentially he would make essentially YouTube videos, and we would watch the YouTube videos at home, and then we'd come back and then we'd discuss them.
I tried that, and the kids just, I mean, if I tried that again, I think I could do it more successfully. I couldn't do it here, because you just wouldn't believe the state of education where I live. It's utterly.
No, I can believe it. It's absolutely horrible. What's happening south.
You cannot give homework, because nobody will do it. Everybody will fail. It's literally not an option. I could have done that. I did do that back home, but I didn't really know what I was doing, because the idea I had of it, and I had this idea because I like this stuff, I'm excited about it, is, I would give them the videos, and then we came back to class the next day. I was like, yes, this is going to be so awesome. I'm like, all right, class, tell me what you thought.
You know that happens often, because you got really good at that noise.
I was like, well, okay. How about, what questions did you have? Were there any parts of it that didn't make any sense? I was like, well, okay. What I realized you have to do is just basically have a set of questions that you can only answer if you watched that material. And then the best thing to do would be to have them like do that in groups, because what you were talking about, they know how to explain stuff to each other in ways that they understand better than I do. So if you get a couple kids that kind of get it, they can get the kids that don't get it to understand.
Actually, this is, as a kid who was the kid who had to explain, I hate you teachers for this. I know it's the most effective method because you get people in groups, and then usually someone will get it and explain it to the rest of the group. And that's usually it's usually the case in each of the groups, right? Like there'll be a person who gets it the most and someone who gets it, and they'll work together and they'll figure it out. But a lot of the time you are carrying a lot of dead weight and you're carrying them to your level. But how dare you, teacher? This is your job.
A little bit.
But I do actually kind of agree with that method, because one of the things that it's going to sound weird, to go back to my true god, sitcoms, the sitcom teacher always kind of does something similar, but it's more like crowd work that a comedian does, where they'll like talk to kids about their things, and then they'll be like, oh, well, this is an example of momentum. Whereas somewhere where like tell a story that involves momentum, the changing of movement or the exchange of movement, right? And then you can start talking to them like, well, that's what Newton was talking about, or that wasn't what Newton was talking about. And so they kind of build like a database of synonyms that you can use to later explain things. Because I think, weirdly enough, I think the thing that works best for teaching is you kind of shotgun a bunch of stuff. And then the second you hit something, you're like, okay, what did I hit here? Is there anything else I hit? And then you try and build kind of a web of synonyms and more importantly, a web of antonyms. Because once people know what it isn't and know what it is, they can get a vague idea. And it's kind of like playing Marco Polo, but with ideas.
Yeah. I had a couple of years ago, I was teaching this a physics class, and I made them, how exactly did this go? I made them write a fictional story where they had to use, we were learning the terms of motion. So like momentum, velocity, acceleration. There were a whole bunch of them. So I made them write a story. So like a lot of them talked about like getting into a car accident or something like that, because that's an easy example to follow or whatever. But yeah, we mix it up, try to mix it up all the time. But what you kind of realize is only about 20% of your students are good at any one particular thing. So we imagine like, oh, if I just like do it in all these different ways, that'll be better. It's like, no, what actually happens is everybody gets their turn. So sorry to make to to kind of dump on your creative idea. I mean, by all means do it, but it's
I think you could
none
do
of this
more
stuff
than
is a solution really to anything.
Oh yeah, I'm just like kind of, to be fair, I'm not trying to find one solution. It's more so I like this shotgun approach because you can eventually, like you said, figure out some people who understand something, and then you can break into groups. Here's Animal Planet, idiots. I can wait until you teach amongst yourselves because you're afraid of the test. Also, one last, because I'm probably going to hop off because I don't have too much more to say. How did you feel when they fired all the nuclear engineers and then, look over your nukes and then beg them to come back like a day later?
Sounds typical. I mean, that's exactly what Elon did with Twitter. He fired so many people and then he begged a bunch of them to come back. So go figure.
Yeah, but I just would, hoped that wouldn't happen with, nukes, nuclear warheads, the thing that go boom, boom, bad.
Yeah.
So anyway, hope you know that your country is doomed. Kudos from Canada. You had a good run.
Oh, he just left. Must have got annexed. Wait, what is it? How do you pray for 3 days in one day? Sit. How's that even possible? What is actually going on? This makes zero sense. Say raptured, but Nils isn't going to heaven. Yeah, facts. I mean, none of us are, but this is like, yeah, what the fuck? This is terrible. Oh shoot. Dream of Dawn is still here, or Nils is still here. Just pray 3 times as hard, and that's how you can pray 3 times in one day. Okay, I'll try. Ah, what the heck? Oh. See, I split my days into 4 days, midnight to 6 a.m. That's day 1. Okay. Have I heard of a time cube? I don't think so. I've heard of time crystals. I'm proud of myself. I can actually explain what a time crystal is. And if you want to know, buy my book because I talk about it in there. Just kidding, but not really. Time crystals are cool. They're very, very cool. You guys may have heard that Microsoft invented a new form of matter, but they actually didn't. Dr. Blitz has a really good video about it. I understood the video when I watched it, but I can't remember anything that was in it.
Hello.
Hello, Moy Men. I don't know how to say that. Sorry.
My name is Moayed.
I'll just call you Mo. I probably won't call you anything. Actually, I usually don't address the guests by name, but whatever. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing just fine.
Okay. I'm mainly here to debate the existence of God.
Hooray. I should take that out of there so we can start talking about science stuff. But
So, number one problem with, before like I get into the topic of my argument, my number one problem with atheism is that they don't even believe in absolute truth.
wow.
Because absolute truth, you can't even confirm to me right now you exist.
You can't confirm to me that you exist.
I can.
No, you can't. Prove that you're not a figment of my imagination.
What do you mean figment of imagination? I'm speaking to you right now and I exist.
Prove that it's not a figment of my own imagination talking to me right now.
What do you mean? Do you like figment of your
It's
imagination?
literally, I cannot dumb it down any more than that. Prove to me that you're not a figment of my imagination.
Meaning you're dreaming. This is all a dream.
No, a figment of my imagination. You can't do that. Okay, so you don't believe in absolute truth.
I do.
What do you want to talk about next? Okay, then prove you're not a figment of my imagination.
I'm not speaking to you right now, and I'm.
Yeah, I know that I'm imagining this happening. Prove that it's anything other than that.
You're not imagining this because I'm speaking.
Prove
to you
it
right
to
now.
me.
It's absolute truth.
Prove it to me.
If it was an imagination, things don't come into reality. Meaning, when you're imagining things,
you're begging the question. You're just saying you're not imagining it because you're not imagining it because this is reality.
No, I'm not saying
prove
no
it to me.
Imagining it, not because you're imagining it. Imagination usually
This
doesn't
was
come into reality.
10 times easier than I thought it would be. So you're
Imagination
incapable of
does not
doing
come
this,
into
just so
reality.
you know.
Imagination most of the times does not come into reality.
Yeah, prove that I'm not imagining this.
You're not. So we
Yeah,
can talk
prove
about
it.
other-
Don't declare it. Prove. Do you know what a circular argument is?
It's not about a circular argument.
Do you
If you're
know what a
imagining-
circular argument is?
Do you think imagination?
No, see, the question is,
mostly
do you
people
know what a
say that they
circular
can
argument
imagine
is?
Birds. No, not birds. The
Mo.
water
Mo,
becoming.
Mo, do you even know
That's
what a
just something.
circular argument is?
Hmm?
Do you know what a circular argument is?
Yes, an
What
argument
is it?
that goes nowhere.
No. Be specific.
An argument that goes nowhere and then circulates to the original topic, meaning an argument that's not valid.
No. That a
It's not a
circular
valid
argument
argument.
is when your conclusion is one of the premises, or vice versa, which is what you're doing. I said prove that you're not a figment of my imagination, and you're just telling me that you're not. You're not proving it. Now, you said that the atheist can't prove that they exist.
Yeah,
You
because
can't
due to
prove
my
that you
belief.
exist.
I
So
can
you are
prove
an
because I'm
atheist.
speaking, and because I was created, and due to living a long life.
I
It's
need
not
you
because
to
of my
prove to
imagination.
me that I'm not just imagining that I'm having a conversation.
If you're imagining, it's a big problem.
I didn't ask you if it's a problem. I asked you to, well, it's not a question, but prove to me that you're not a figment of my imagination.
I can prove that because most things when people imagine things, most of them don't come into reality. Meaning, I can give you an example. They can say the water.
I didn't ask you for an example. I asked you to
Yes,
prove that
because
right
imagine
now
doesn't come into
I'm not
reality.
talking to a voice in my head.
This is not virtual reality. You're
Okay,
not
you
experiencing
can't
virtual
do
reality.
this. The only thing you've been able to do is beg the question so we can move on. I've
It's not
demonstrated that
about
you're an
begging the question.
absolute
It's a stupid
hypocrite
argument.
because, yes, your argument that atheists can't prove that they exist
Yes,
to other
they don't,
people
and it's
is a
stupid.
weakness that you and everybody
I can prove
has.
that it
So
exists
you
because
are
most of the things
completely
in imagination
disingenuous and
don't
you
come
have
into
no
reality.
idea what you're talking about. What do you want to talk about next?
Fine tuning equals God, meaning I can prove to the universe the tuning. I'm not talking about if gravity existed or not. The strength of gravity that holds everything together is the proof of God, because there had to be a higher intelligence power.
Yeah, which is how we know that aliens are simulating the universe. I agree.
What?
Yeah, this is how we know that aliens are simulating our universe.
No, aliens don't exist. We have multiple.
No,
this.
actually, the aliens
If you
created a
believe aliens
simulation,
exist, you're
and that's what
real.
this is. And that's how we proved that aliens exist.
If you believe that aliens exist, you might need to
No,
go.
I
check
know
your
that aliens exist because they're simulating this universe. This universe has the properties of a simulation.
simulating
That's how we
aliens,
know
which-
they exist.
Can you name me which alien did you see?
His name was.
Nice.
He's
You're
from
not at a
Mongolia.
comedy club. This is talking to a person.
Yes,
So,
I treat dipshit arguments like yours
Dipshit
exactly.
arguments is not
I
dipshit
parody
arguments. I'm
your
talking about
arguments
I'm
in the
talking about fine-tuning.
appropriate way, and people learn and laugh and live and love quite a lot from watching
I'm talking
this
about
stuff.
fine tuning. Explain to me why gravity has the same as
Because the aliens
certain
that
amount of
simulate
strength
this universe
hold everything
programmed it to
together.
be that way. That's the
Oh,
only
it's meant to be that
explanation.
way. Okay, if it's meant to be that way, was there needed a higher power? Yes or no?
Yes, the thing that is simulating our
The
universe.
simulating, it's not aliens. There's no scientific proof.
No,
there
it is.
aliens.
It is
If you
aliens. We
believe
even
that
know what their
aliens
names
created
are. Do you want
gravity,
me to tell you
if
what their
believe
names were
aliens
again?
created
Their names were.
gravity, you need to go to my friend, if you believe aliens
No, we're
created
not
gravity,
friends.
you need to go to
I
a
would
hospital.
never be friends with somebody like you.
Hmm?
I would never be friends with somebody like you. So don't say that.
Hopefully don't, because you can't even confirm to me you exist. So
No, and neither can you. We
yes,
went
I
over
can,
that
because
already.
I told you. You're not imagining. You're not
Because I told you that's how you
Uh-uh.
proved it. Okay, I'm telling you right now that motherfucker is real. That's you right now.
No, that's not me.
Yes.
I
Well, it
literally
is.
told you, and
So
I
I
didn't
don't know what to
implement
tell
reality.
you, but it absolutely is. Way to flip the script on
You
that one.
flipped
That
you flipped the
motherfucker
script towards
is
that.
real.
You cannot you yourself cannot confirm to me exist. Plus, you cannot debunk.
Yes,
the
I
argument
can.
that
I'm telling
gravity
you,
is the way it is. What is the point of arguing?
buddy. First of all, I can prove to you that I exist. I'm telling you that I exist.
Oh, okay.
Second of all, gravity is the way it is because the aliens that are simulating this universe programmed it to be that way. That's the only explanation.
Wait, can you repeat that?
No.
No, of course. Wallah, I'm talking to someone that needs to see you at a hospital, bro. You need to see a hospital. You told me aliens created gravity by your argument.
Yeah, it's part of the simulated
Yeah,
universe.
go
And
see
we
a
know
hospital,
that because it has
as
the
soon as
properties
possible.
that a simulated
Book it.
universe would have. That's how we know that
Book a
aliens
hospital
exist.
check now.
Do you know what
bro.
begging the question is? Begging the question is when you say, I think that this thing exists. So let me say that the reason things are the way they are is because that thing I believe in made them be the way that they are. Therefore, the thing I believe exists
No, not because of
exists.
because
That is
it's
called
an
begging the
intelligent
question.
power.
And it's what
An
you're doing when
intelligent
you
power
invoke
was required to
fine-tuning.
create the
Congratulations.
strength of gravity. That's why a higher power needed is in order to create
How do we know that?
a certain strength.
How do you know that?
Because humans, no aliens, no flying donkeys can create something.
I
like
didn't
that.
ask you what
have
can't do it. I asked you how you know God did it.
Because it's common sense. It does not. Take
It's common
2 seconds
sense.
To think of that.
The fact that you
We're
don't
not- you're
understand
not
all
born
of
an
the
atheist.
circular
You're not
reasoning you're
born an
doing
atheist.
is just some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in my life.
You're not born an atheist. You cannot.
Yeah, you are.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you are. What do babies believe in?
You're not born an atheist, bro.
What do babies believe in?
Okay, if you're born an atheist.
Okay, what do babies believe in, Mo?
Babies believe in? Most of the time, their minds are not developed over time. When
So they don't believe in God. Okay, thank
Some
you.
minds are not-
Thank you for playing. You can't prove that you exist. You proved that everybody is born an atheist. You proved that aliens are simulating this universe. This is just some of
cannot prove.
the score here is like 10-0.
No, it's actually the opposite.
I'm
10
winning,
me,
but
0
you've
you.
scored all of the points. That's what's happening right
It's the
now.
opposite. 10 to me, 0 to you. You didn't debunk that gravity has the certain strength.
You know, the last time I heard
didn't
somebody
debunk.
make an "I know you are, but what am I" argument, I think I was in 3rd grade.
No. You have a mind of a 3rd grade.
No.
because you believe
You
aliens created-
unironically
aliens.
just did it again.
No.
You unironically just said, "I know you are, but what am I?" After I told you you are making "I know you are, but what am I" arguments.
What?
And then you did it again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end this man's whole career.
Stick to comedy because you are not going nowhere. This whole
That means that I am going
done
somewhere.
you haven't done a,
Learn how to English.
you haven't done a single thing.
I've done
Gave
all
you an
kinds of
argument.
things.
Gave you an argument of fine tuning. Didn't debunk it. Didn't address it. Didn't do nothing.
We haven't really
what
talked
else?
about it very much because what I did was I proved that the fine-tuning argument proves aliens exist as much as it proves anything else. And you
Okay.
just, you're either
Next time
too
I see
stupid
you,
or
I hope to see you
brainwashed
in
to
a
understand that. But go ahead and talk about fine-tuning.
Next time
Go
I see
on,
you, I hope
go
to
on,
see
Short
you
King.
in a UFO with
Go ahead.
Phineas and Ferb and all of them.
What I did was I proved that Short King.
In a UFO.
Go ahead and argue for fine-tuning.
I'm arguing. Told you, how is gravity the certain strength it is? Meaning, I'm not arguing that gravity. How did gravity exist? How is it the certain
Yeah,
strength?
go ahead and tell me
The
how
whole
gravity
thing
ended up the
together.
way that it is.
Hmm?
Go ahead and tell me how gravity ended up the way it is.
It ended up the way it is because of God. Because
And
of
how do you
higher
know that?
power created it. There had
How
to
do you
be
know
an
that?
intelligent power. It doesn't. It's common sense.
No, it's
It's common
so
sense.
again, do you know what
Because
begging the
this
question is?
I'll
Because that's
answer
what
it,
you're
I'll answer it,
doing.
I'll answer it. Hold on,
How
hold
do
on,
I
yeah, I'll
know
tell you
that?
why.
It's
Hold on.
known. That's how I know it.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. 'Cause
Yeah, go ahead.
Scientists cannot answer this question. Science cannot answer.
Do you know what an argument from ignorance is?
Hmm?
Do you know what an argument from ignorance is?
What is an argument for ignorance?
An argument from ignorance. Let's say that I say, you and I go outside and there is a tree that fell over. And I ask you, how do you think that tree fell over? And you said, I don't know. And then I say, well, I think that it was Jacques the pirate. And you say, what? What do you mean? And then I say, oh, do you know how it happened? And you say no. And I say, therefore, that means Jacques the pirate did it. And then I'll even say that it's common knowledge. So what you're doing is instead of proving your claim, you're saying, hey, other people don't know what an alternative explanation is.
No.
That means that I'm right. So
no, not because of that. Because your argument that aliens exist does not debunk my argument of fine tuning. Because it's a stupid argument. We know, me and you both know, aliens don't exist.
no, we don't know
literal
that
proof of-
actually. You know how many galaxies? Wait, you think the Earth is flat, don't you?
Hmm?
You think the Earth is flat, don't you?
No, I think the Earth is round.
Oh, interesting. So there are hundreds of billions of galaxies, right?
Hundreds of billions of galaxies.
This is what's called common knowledge. There are hundreds of billions of galaxies.
Okay.
Okay. And there are many billions of planets in every single galaxy. And now you're
Okay.
telling me that we know that there's nothing alive in any of them?
There's
Oh my God, I didn't think this guy would actually be able to talk about these things. So anyways, the more important thing is the aliens, they exist outside of this reality. They're simulating this universe.
Hello to Tobashin and Robatin and Zubatin next week, man.
Don't fucking play some dumbass gypsy curse on me, Mo. Okay? Stop rebuking me in the name of your holy juju or whatever it is the fuck that you're doing. Quit witchcrafting me, Mo. That's a bad Mo. Bad. Quit that.
I'll wait for to arrive next week on Earth today. I'll arrive. I'll be waiting for them. Man. I'll be waiting for next week.
Are you done?
No. I'm not done because.
Go ahead. Sounds like you're done. So how do you know that your God exists?
Sound like you're done because you didn't prove anything. Nothing. This whole argument.
I proved that you don't know anything either.
Nonsense.
You can't prove that you exist.
You cannot prove fine tuning. You cannot debunk it. You cannot prove you exist.
You haven't
You're
proven
talking to me
anything
about
with
aliens.
regard to fine tuning.
You're a grown ass man that believes aliens created gravity because you need to go see a hospital. I swear to you, I'm not lying. You need to see a hospital. Because if you think aliens created gravity, holy shit.
Do you think that people that hear voices in their head should go to the hospital?
Hmm?
Do you think that people who hear voices in their head should go to the hospital?
Voices in their head. What does that have to do with this argument?
Do you think that people who hear
proving that
voices
you're
in their head
stupid
should go
enough.
see a
You're
hospital?
stupid enough. You're stupid enough to literally need medical attention. You're lower intelligence. That's why I'm telling you to go see a hospital. And it's nothing wrong against autistic people or people who have who are deficient in IQ. There's nothing wrong with that. God created us all to have some things, and that's totally fine.
Do you think people who hear voices in their heads should go see a hospital?
The people who go to mental asylums, you mean?
Do you think I'll just ask the question for like the 10th time? I don't know what you're lacking or deficient in that you can't understand a basic question. Do you think that people who hear voices in their heads should go see
like you?
do you talk to God?
Yeah, I see
Then
him
you should
outside.
go
He's
to the
outside
hospital.
chilling.
Okay.
Go
You
outside.
should
Then
go
what
see a
you do is
hospital because
open
you
your
hear
door right
voices
now
in
and
your
go
head,
look at
Mo.
him.
But you don't really need to go to a hospital because you don't actually exist. You're just a figment
I'm
of my
telling
imagination.
you to go, not
But
even
maybe
the
I'll
hospital, go to
imagine you
therapy.
going to the
Forget the
hospital.
hospital.
I'll
go
imagine
therapy.
you walking barefoot over a road of Lego bricks to the hospital. That's what I think I'll do.
Nice. Congrats,
Nice. Nice. I hope you open up a tin jar that has cookies on the top, but it's just a sewing kit on the inside.
Nice. Okay.
I hope that you step in a puddle after putting on a pair of socks. I
Okay,
hope that
man.
you have to visit Gary, Indiana for a work obligation.
Yay. Useless fucking dumbass.
Yeah, you are. Kitty cat, he rage quitted. What do you think about that? Oh man. Never pulled out the Gary, Indiana before. That might have been a little bit uncalled for. Gary, Indiana. Oh man. Electric Shock, are you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, so first of all, I'm not about a debate. There is something that has been stuck in my mind that you said. I don't remember to which idiot flirter, but it was something about the. You were talking about the air pressure, how it can be gradient when we go
Yes.
further up. And you told him that because I don't remember what stupid shit they were saying, but you told the guy that. Do you think that the lower pressure air is pressing down on the higher pressure air? I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, that's what he said. That the reason I can't remember why he invoked that. Oh, he said the reason because if you have differences in pressure, then the gas has to equalize. So he said the air on top is pressing down on the air below, which that's true in a sense because that's what weight is, but that's not what but that explanation only makes sense in the gravity model because that's why it's down there. If there's no such thing as gravity, then that gas needs to fly up in order to equalize in pressure.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that in my brain because the way you said it, it was like, that's literally what's happening. Like there is more air when we are on ground level, at sea level. There is more air above us. That's why there is more pressure here than there is up there. Because there is literally more air. And it was confusing in my brain. I was like, Eric, what are you saying? Like, that sounds wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So it's not wrong. I just want. And one other thing that now that I was listening to this idiot, that he said we know aliens don't exist. And I don't remember her name. It was I think an astrophysicist or something. I don't exactly remember. She was a guest in Neil deGrasse Tyson's in Star Talk, and Tyson actually asked her. How much have we looked in the universe for life elsewhere? Because we haven't found anything. And she said that it's like saying that
a single drop in the ocean and saying there are no whales or something.
She said that it's like getting a glass of water from the sea and saying that fish don't exist because I didn't get any in the glass. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been weeks that I wanted to ask you about the air pressure thing. That's the only thing I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
I hope I didn't annoy you. I love your work and have a very beautiful day. I believe it's day there, right?
It's 12:30 p.m. So yeah. Thanks, you too.
Okay. Yeah, have a very beautiful day. Bye.
Bye. I wanted to acknowledge this YouTube comment because somebody said something about, oh yeah, Gary, South Dakota. Fun fact, I grew up only a few miles from Gary, South Dakota, and they were part of my school district. So I know people from there, and it's this tiny town. I don't even think 200 people live in it, but small world. Hello, Schloomp.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Real pleasure talking to you. I watch you all the time.
Thank you.
So I'm in my 50s, and I've been an atheist all my thinking life. I've just been wondering in recent years if perhaps I've kind of got entirely the wrong idea about the whole point of God, and the reason why God has proved to be so sort of stubbornly held. I'm not talking about sort of the I'm not talking about Noah's Ark, 10 plagues, virgin birth. Of course, all that stuff's barking mad. I mean, God is a beneficial way of thinking. God is evolutionarily useful. God is sort of a fiction with function. I see its value there. I think the problem comes when people lean into the whole sort of mystical, supernatural side of things. But do I believe God as an evolutionary useful tool? Do I think that maybe if the dodo and the woolly mammoth had God to believe in, maybe they'd still be around? I think, I'm Jewish. I went to synagogue about 6 months ago just because I had to go for a family thing. And I was sat there and I was looking at people praying. It's not just pointless noise. People are sort of singing in harmony. They're singing songs their ancestors sung, stuff.
Yeah, it's not unlike sports in a big way.
It's not unlike sports in a big way, but it's certainly not as generational. Obviously, my favorite soccer team has only been around 100 years. I mean, we're talking about God United has been around for a few millennia. I think it creates a sense of purpose for humans beyond just survival and reproduction. So yeah, I'm still an atheist, of course.
Wow.
I have a newfound respect, though, I think, for blind faith. I'd be fascinated with your thoughts.
Sure. I mean, I guess I feel the same way. I have felt the same way for a long time. I don't think religion would be as popular and have been around historically and become so like ingrained within us if it didn't convey some sort of advantage. And yeah, it doesn't have to be true in order for that to be the case. I mean, I'm trying to think of a different example. Like, I don't know, I get the closest thing I can think of is language. Like, we use language to represent things that are real, but the way we do language, like our grammatical concepts are kind of nebulous. I mean, they do to a certain extent represent the way reality works. Like, you have things and their relation to other things and what happens, subjects, predicates, and verbs, right? But I don't know, there are plenty of other things, conceptual things in language. For some reason I can't think of one off the top of my head that isn't real. Or like you know what probably a better example is like the economy, right? It's not real. We literally just declare what things are and what their value is. Now, you could like talk about how the origins of it was real because you would barter, you would trade goods for goods, but then we started representing the value of things abstractly. But it's beneficial for us. It creates large scale cooperation, and humans otherwise can't really live in big groups like that. And it can help with survival in a big way. It can leave a lot of people behind. It can lead to war and things like that, which, I mean, religion does that as well. So, so does soccer, I think. But yeah, I mean, I don't like fault people for having religious beliefs. I say this a lot, but I'm not like one of the anti-theists. Not exactly. Because like if I could wave a magic wand and make religion disappear today, I don't think I would do that, because in its immediate absence, whatever it would be replaced by, I wouldn't trust at all. But I do hope that over time people just naturally grow out of it.
That's
So
fascinating.
I'm a soft anti-theist.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I mean, looking at your work, I watch you all the time. You strike me as being slightly more militant. Maybe you're just provoked by a lot of, like the guy you had on just before.
That's mostly because I talk to people that are so sometimes just insane. A lot of them are just kind of disgusting, or they say disgusting things, or they're just so what the hell's the word, sanctimonious. And when they do that, I throw it right back at them. But like, I know I was sort of co-hosting with Deconstruction Zone the other day. We had several conversations, long conversations with people, where we were going through the Bible and just talking about horrible things that are in it. And these people would it tripped a lot of them up. And we didn't sit there and be like, yeah, well, that's what you're like, or that's what you believe in, or that's what we didn't do that. We said, yeah, that's because you have a conscience. Sorry. We recognize that people are better than the book they believe in.
Yeah, it's interesting. The more you talk, the more I kind of come to the conclusion. I mean, it's that Voltaire was that old hackneyed, we need to invent him. Humans clearly don't need God to be around. And I'm not anti-theist either. I quite like the way it makes serious people think. Like Einstein's theory of relativity, he just had a good long think about things. He kind of had a good long philosophical think about life and the universe, and came up with the greatest scientific breakthrough in human history. That wasn't the result of scientific empirical research. That was the result of thinking about God in a way. That's where I see the beauty of belief. It's the fairy tales and the claptrap that kind of gets in the way. But as a comfort, as a belief system, a crumb of comfort in a pointless universe, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
We're just agreeing, aren't we, basically?
Sort of. I mean, shit. Human rights are invented. So how's that? But if that helps people and it helps us build better societies, then fine. And I think having some sort of religious, I mean, it depends, but having some sort of religious structure is there was probably a that was beneficial, and it was maybe better than just naked hunting and gathering or subsistence farming or whatever, because it was like maybe their first example of rule giving. But I think we've graduated to better systems today.
So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but just interested if you could maybe talk a bit more about your where you see sort of a humanist version of faith. Then, if you're not anti-theist, clearly the inclination for humanity is just to dive in at the deep end though, and go full sort of like God as the big guy in the sky with the beard, thunderbolts and lightning. I think the inclination and the instinct for humans to want to devour that belief system is just as ravenous as it ever was. I don't see people seeing faith as a sort of modern toolkit, as a pragmatic way to benefit human society. I think the mystical, supernatural side will always win over at the end of the day, which is where the danger lies.
I mean, it could be, but isn't the course of history us continuously abandoning religious ideas about like the earth not moving, just name any mythology. But even if we pick like the Judeo-Christian tradition or whatever, you know, the earth not moving, sicknesses being caused by miasmas. I'm actually kind of optimistic about it. I mean, if religion will never die, it's because we'll never know from whence this universe came, and so people will always just that'll just become what God is, and what people imagine God is today is nothing like what people imagined what God was a couple thousand years ago. Even, I mean, there's plenty of overlap, but you know, if you would have given, like, I'm pretty darn confident that if you'd have given a first century person an argument that like Aquinas or somebody made about God, they'd be like, what? No, what? No, God's just a chill guy. He's not any of those things. The fuck are you talking about?
I don't know. I mean, you go back to the first century, and I mean, God's highlight reel is still, well, long before the first century. It's Old Testament. He's still dining out on all his greatest hits. You know, we haven't heard from him for 4,000 years.
Yeah.
Not a single plague, not one extra frog to boost subscription numbers. But he clearly doesn't need that PR. It's, you know, he's a hardy perennial. Is God, and I don't see. I see us, you and I, the version of you and I in 1,000 years talking about this, and the big guy in the sky being equally as popular. So, but I do see the value. There was a fascinating book. I don't know if you know an author called Alain de Botton. He wrote a book called Religion for Atheists, which is just a brilliant way of kind of like decompartmentalizing the value of belief, but putting it in a rationalist viewpoint. It's a phenomenal read. It kind of encompasses a lot of what we've been talking about. So well worth going to Amazon for that. Okay, look, I won't take any more time. As I said, love your work and lovely chatting to you.
Thanks, you too.
Cheers.
All right, we don't currently have any guests. Anybody requesting right now? Somebody's got to be able to do better than that first guest. I mean, come on. Oh, the Suns and the Mavericks are playing right now. That's a matchup nobody wants to watch. Okay, sorry. I was sending a text. Basketball fan? Yeah, I mean, I'm a Mavericks fan, but I guess now I'm a Lakers fan. I don't want to talk about it. We've talked before, haven't we?
Yeah, just once briefly. I just want to know,
Okay.
what do you think is like the best argument that they have on their side?
Religious people?
Yeah.
I think there's two, and I don't think either of them are particularly very good at all. And they're good for different reasons. The fine-tuning argument is a good argument because it appeals to, well, it's very, very difficult to know what to say in response to it. But at the end of the day, it's an equally good argument for simulation theory. It's a complete argument from ignorance. And there's actually a lot of problems with it that I think they're contradictory if you're trying to argue for something in particular. I feel that fine-tuning gets you nowhere other than deism, not theism. You have to assume the mind of God in order to make the argument. And what people also don't realize is the fine tuning that applies to literally everything in the universe. So you can say the universe is fine tuned for cat shit because the properties that it does. It's not just that we couldn't exist; cat shit couldn't exist. So in order to even make the argument, you have to just assume so much, including the mind and intention of a god, which is, I don't know how you can be more conceited than that. I really don't. The other ones are the moral arguments because I think that just plays into our sort of intuitions, I guess I would say. But I mean, that's you just have to look into the Euthyphro dilemma and see. And well, I think the problem of evil is also another huge problem for it. But the Euthyphro dilemma, it completely undercuts the idea that morality comes, well, that the morality could in any way be objective, I guess would be the number one thing.
So I agree that like those two might be persuasive, right? But what I'm it's my fault, right? What I meant is like, what do you think? Which of the arguments do you think is like the best on its own merits, right? Not like persuasiveness, right? Because I do agree those two probably are among the most persuasive in the first case because the vast majority of people don't really understand like what even the constants are supposed to be, right? And so because it seems like very intellectual, right? It
Yeah.
feels compelling. In the other case, because it hits you in your emotions, it's compelling. But I mean, like, which arguments do you think like are, and I don't mean argument necessarily in the technical sense. Like,
Yeah.
which
I
sort
would
of
probably still
things
say
are
fine
best?
tuning because I don't really see any contradictions in it. It's just I mean, the morality argument is a contradiction. And then the other, the more philosophical arguments like the ontological argument or the transcendental arguments, those are just you're begging the question so hard by doing those, really. And I mean, you kind of are with the fine tuning argument, but I mean, it's not so bad. I wouldn't call that argument a contradiction. So I would say that's probably the answer.
So then let me ask you, like, it doesn't work on me, right? But I can see why it works on other people, like the design argument, right? That seems like if you see the world in a certain way, like it makes sense to me, like why that would be compelling to you. What do you think?
You're saying that it would only be compelling if you saw the world in a certain way?
Yeah, so
That's
like
what I thought I heard
somebody,
you say.
yeah, that's correct. So, like when I look at a tree, right? To me, it doesn't look like less chaotic than anything else. But I can understand like certain points of views that would see a tree and see, um, it's just like some people will see patterns in things more often than other people, right? And if you one of these people tend to see patterns everywhere, then things are going to look more designed to you, right? That's the sort of thing I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, the design argument. Yeah, that one's probably pretty. I mean, that's again intuitively very good. The design argument, which is again just an argument from ignorance or whatever. So
Yeah, I
I can
agree.
see
Like
how.
it's certainly the conclusion is not like necessarily going to follow from the premises, right? But I can understand why to some people it would at least seem that way.
Yeah, no, I that makes sense to me. It's a hard argument to deal with in many ways.
It's just something that interests me. The way that different like psychologies, right, are going to lend themselves to different arguments, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll say one more thing before I let you go with regard to the fine tuning. There's probably stuff I'm forgetting. Well, I never really discussed the how it only gets you to deism kind of thing, but I think one of the most damning things about it is that we don't have a physical, because what I talked about is the fine tuning argument is an explanation for literally every. So you could say God desired just for there to be termites, because if it's not fine tuned, they can't exist either. Now, what people say is that it's highly tuned for like intelligent life, like we are, which has the same problems with regard to assuming the mind of God. But you can still point out that we don't have a physical theory of life. We don't have any kind of explanation or mechanism or anything that says these are the kinds of constants that give you intelligent life, and these are the configurations of constants that don't. And we only have one that does what we have. Like, that's what people argue that we have, because we have a sample size of one, and they just say everything else is impossible, which is totally not true in the sense that it's not known at all. So to make what it implicitly does is it says we know how to get how to have physical constants create life. We don't have that at all.
Oh, one small point on this, right? So like the constants may not actually be constants. Like so under um like asymptotic safe gravity, right? Um, some of the constants are actually derivable. They're not constants, they are outputs of the fundamental formulas, right? So they're only, you can only say that we have these constants if like our current scientific theories and math are like actually going to be the answers in the end, right? It's just seems just as plausible to me that we'll find out in the end, right, that we're plugging in these constants to get the math to work, but in truth, they're all just derivations of the actually correct formulas, right, that we'll someday discover. So, like, I just reject that we even know that these things need to be accounted for.
Okay. Cool insight.
Thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. All right. Man, it looks like there's like 2 different fights going on in the YouTube comments. That's nice to see. No, my kitty cat's walking away. Every time lap and then gets up and walks away, I think to myself, I don't think I'm ever going to recover from this. But I always do. Kitty cat, come here. Come here. You want a cigarette? I got a cigarette. Huh? Huh? It's fake, by the way. No? Okay. Cat is living its own life, adenosine triphosphate. I don't know what that means, but Kai, no speaking French or whatever that is that you just typed in there. Who's winning the finals for the NBA? It's a very good question. How do you counter the argument from consciousness? I don't even know what it is, so I wouldn't be able to. The only possible way we can have consciousness is if there's an eternal mind. I don't know what you mean exactly by cats are fascist. What the hell kind of comment is that? That seems I don't know about that. Who do I think is gonna win the finals? Is it Oklahoma City's turn to make it to the finals? I don't know. I can honestly see Boston winning it again. They're just so freaking good at defense. It's insane. Now Oklahoma City is a good matchup, or a good counter to that because so are they. So I don't know. I mean, I think we're very likely to see Oklahoma City and Boston in the finals. I don't believe in the Lakers. I'm a huge Luka fan. I will die on the hill that he deserved to be the MVP last year. I think he's already the best passer in the history of the NBA. I think he's already a top 20 player in the history of the NBA. But I don't have faith in them this year because they're not really a team. I can see Denver getting to Memphis isn't going to go to the finals. Houston isn't going to go to the finals. I can see Denver doing it. In terms of Denver being a good matchup against Boston, Boston just has so much more depth than Denver does. Now, I'm kind of disrespecting the Cavaliers. Were the Cavaliers in the... I mean, they didn't have that. I mean, they had a good season last year, but I don't know. The Cavs, they've won. They've only lost half as many games as Boston, but I don't know. So I haven't watched a lot of Cavaliers games, so I can't really give you much insight as to how the Cavaliers match up against either Denver or Oklahoma City. So I just won't say much about that. Why are we talking about sports? Sorry. I didn't have a guest on.
Yes, hello, how are you?
Hello, bastard. What's up?
Oh, I'm good, how are you?
Good enough.
What a fine day this is on God's green earth.
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Well, you said debate if you disagree, right?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Cool. Earth is not flat. I disagree with this.
You think the earth is flat?
It honestly, it depends on if you will provide me the patience to detail my thesis.
Tell you what. No. That was pretty obviously a troll. Connor got your new book, Conservative Dad. Wanted to read it. Hopefully that means progress. Thanks either way. Well, facts that aren't true. I mean, this isn't a political book, although there is some like Bible stuff in there that somebody might take offense to. But I actually mostly like I don't attack the Bible really in this book. The only thing I kind of do is the section on Goliath being a giant, which he just so obviously wasn't for quite a lot of reasons. But I don't know. I think Facts That Aren't True is a book for anybody, unless you were talking about it's Bastard Fish is back. No, I'm not interested in that. Unless you're talking about rational answers to stupid questions. Well, I don't have anything else to do, so. All All right, go ahead,
Hello.
Slay Queen.
Thank you so much. I am a pretty princess, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So my main thesis is this, right? Well, it's dissected into two parts. I will keep this brief. I understand you have a delightful show to get back to. So the first part is that to suggest otherwise, that the Earth would not be flat would be devastating to my argument, and this would not benefit me. So that's the first part. And the second part is that if the Earth were round, we would be living on a ball. And as somebody who already struggles both with his identity as a man in an ever-changing social climate and confusing feelings towards my neighbor, I need you to understand, living on a ball would mean we were touching balls. And touching balls is gay. Checkmate, liberals. Anyways, I
Oh,
love
man.
you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
See ya. My main problem with the globe is that it's gay.
Oh shit. I'm just listening in. My bad.
Oh, you didn't mean to? Okay, that's fine.
But hang on though, real quick. What do you mean by truth? Like, what is truth in your view?
True is that which corresponds to reality.
Do you think that we have access to objective reality?
No, we have access to a subject, mean that it can't mirror or mimic the
Or
reality in
approximate
front.
reality?
Yeah,
right?
and the key to this is there are other minds that we can participate with to recursively validate whatever ideas, logical statements, axiomatic presuppositions within science or whatever. Because if none of the minds around us agree, then that's the only kind of justification we can have for well, if they agree or disagree. I think that's the only reasonable justification we can have for saying that the false or are confirmed to be an approximation of reality.
Yeah. So I don't know. I read too much philosophy, but I'm guessing you've abandoned like foundationalism. Like,
Not only have I not abandoned it, I don't know what it is.
basically that like our beliefs and our knowledge is like on a pyramid kind of thing. Like this is why Darth Dawkins and people like that will be like, you need to ultimately justify your beliefs. I just
Yeah, but they can't do that.
yeah, I look at beliefs as more of like a spider web, right? As long as it's coherent, validates each other, and each part of the web is kind of replaceable with new evidence. And yeah, like you said, ultimate epistemic justification is unobtainable. Even like science, for all it's good that it does, rest on like, you know, unjustifiable like premises.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I was doing dishes and listening, so I'm gonna go back to that. My bad.
All right, sounds like fun. Oh man. The globe is gay. I'm still laughing. Oh, it's Dexter. In Dexter's laboratory. Oh shit, how's the rest of that go?
Get out of my kitchen.
Something about things
how you
you've
doing,
never
Peterson?
seen. But Dee Dee blows his experiments to smithereens. There is doom and gloom up in his room. And then I can't remember what goes on in between there, but then it just ends with in Dexter's lab. So
Hell yeah, bro.
that's all right.
How's it going today?
So far, so good. Lots of lulls.
Yeah, seems like an entertaining stream so far. I just wanted to hop on and because I didn't get a chance to yesterday, was it? To talk about a couple of things. One occurred to me was the role of AI generation engines, where AI is generating content that other AI consumes. a whole contribution to what they call the dead internet theory and all that. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on the whole. I mean, it's a massive, complicated topic, but more so in the realm of like people's engagement with the internet. What do you think is going to happen in 5-10 years out if AI is doing most of the heavy lifting, both in consuming and for generating content?
I'm reading. I always forget what the dead internet theory is. So it's just the conspiracy theory that most of the activity online is just bot activity. Okay, well, I don't really. I mean, AI could exacerbate that, but so like, what do I think if we get to like artificial general intelligence or artificial super intelligence? What do I think are going to be the broader implications for that in like 5 years?
Less so on the general and super intelligence front. I think I have a pretty good picture in my head of what that might lead to. You know, you could go one of two ways or both ways, where you've got, you know, AI gets turned into a weapon for the battlefield. You know, you've got two armies that are relying on these general or super intelligence to guide their battle efforts, and you know, it just causes escalation and escalation. Or we could cure cancer, cure AIDS, cure autoimmune diseases, and all of that stuff with the amazing calculation, or just, I mean, it's kind of like AI can explore the entire field of a particular medical topic in a fraction of the time that it takes a human mind to do so. So you talk about like there's a bot that is building proteins and has identified actual it explores the entire field of potential proteins that can exist, and then identifies ones that we can actually make, or the ones that are actually
So
coincide with reality.
if it's not that, then what's your specific question?
Well, I guess to stop waffling and get onto the thing, what do you think is going to happen with the AI content creation front with regards to pushing us sad organic content creators off the map?
Oh, right. I don't know. I could. How do I want to say this? I could honestly see companies like YouTube having a way to know whether or not content is AI generated or not, and then just either not monetize it or not allow it to be uploaded. I could see them trying to tackle that, because I think that they just philosophically genuinely think that that is what they're at, that promoting real people is what they're after.
Guess it would depend on how it lines up with their goals.
I mean, I suppose, but like at the same time, you know, I haven't made one for a while, but I was using these two video games to create dinosaur documentaries, and I was uploading them to YouTube. I'm gonna get back to that hopefully,
nice.
maybe this week. Now I could understand, like I could see is just basically make it so that you or I can do CGI, right? Instead of calling it AI generated, let's just call it CGI. You know, like the movie, the live action like Lion King movie that's about to come out, or Shrek. Like literally 0% of that is going to be real. So, I mean, they may have like, you know, a guy walking around in a suit to, you know, create to model it. But if we're okay with 100% CGI movies existing, I don't think they should be the only movies, then I don't actually get the like taboo against something that's AI generated, because like going back to it, like say you wanted, like you were a history teacher or a science teacher or something, and you just want to like recreate something. If we could do that with the like video generating stuff, then I think that would actually be a good thing. And that's how I feel. That's how I feel about it, at least. But I mean, I don't know. The car put all the horseshoe makers out of business, and I can understand why that sucks. But at the same time, it's like something I this I would say this to people back when I was in college and I was on forums about cars, like on like discussion boards on like the Top Gear website and stuff like that, because all these hybrid
Oh, yeah.
supercars were coming out and people were like, "Grrr." And what I would usually say to them is, it's called technology, try to keep up. And and is like, yeah.
Brilliant.
Now the problem is that AI can change things so fast that it completely disrupts whatever systems we have. And I'm not in favor of that, because typically the implementation of something takes about a generation or so. Although I don't know, the internet became, well, no, I mean, I would say it probably took the internet about a generation to go from a thing that some of us had to a thing that literally everybody has and is engaged in
Yeah, I
all the
would
time.
agree.
And we certainly haven't coped very well with it. No, but well, I mean, we have, but we haven't.
Yeah, the introduction of the sewing machine, and there was actual, and I think I hear this argument a lot where you know, artists like I mean, you're an artist yourself, so I've seen some of your drawings, which are amazing, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
The concept behind their argument is usually something along the lines of, well, AI is going to push us real creators off to the side, and we're going to lose business and not be able to make a living anymore. Yeah, buffalo fur.
Yeah,
Friggin'
I don't think I can get the. Oh yeah, there's the whole picture.
Oh, there you go. There it is.
And my shark.
The Tonka Kia Blilo.
That's my favorite movie. Dances
Oh,
with
no shit.
Wolves. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that movie.
yeah.
Some of Costner's finest work. Yeah, what an amazing film. But the idea that it's kind of like what happened with the sewing machine in the, what was it, the late 1800s, something like that, where tailors actually rioted and burned down sewing machine factories once the sewing machine came out. It's like a similar, where a technology becomes so disruptive that it puts people out of work. You're going to see some violence with something like that, or we have at least.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what the generative AI thing does, and I've used it myself. I'm not unguilty of that. Used it for thumbnails. I've used it for a song or two. But I've also used, you know, the other side where you're paying for a commissioned piece of work. My profile picture is commissioned. So it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I could train a bot to use. I'm a storyteller, so I could train a bot to use my voice and just spit out stories on my channel, and that would be that, and I wouldn't have to do much work. But it wouldn't be the same, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, when Thomas Edison, when he invented the record player, well, what did he invent? The phonograph. What he said, he was a complete asshole, but he was also a pragmatic man, and he did have I don't know if I would call them philanthropic ideas, but he thought, like, he invented it, and you can go back and read what he thought. He said he basically predicted the existence of audiobooks. He said people will record books on these. He said that instead of, you know, you could get faithful recordings of what was said in meetings, and you wouldn't have to have a, what the fuck do you call that? A stenographer or something?
Yeah, with
a typist. What the hell do you call
keyboard?
Yeah, you wouldn't have to have somebody do that. You wouldn't have to have a scribe do that. He imagined all these things that would make it better for life, but instead, what happened? We made music out of it, and that was like literally it for decades. And I don't know if people said this is going to put live orchestras out of business. Like, think of the art and creativity that's going to get lost when any jerk off can just go record something and play it, and they don't have to go through all the blah 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 blah. But it did actually make the world a better place, and those things that he imagined would happen actually did eventually happen. So this sort of like the problems we're going to have with AI in the short term, I try to think in the long term, and I think to myself, like, look, AI could it could potentially do something incredible, which is put doctors out of business. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, I'm talking about if a computer can accurately diagnose you in 15 minutes, and and we can build these computers as fast as we want, that means that you can build clinics like literally, like the town I live in is 140,000 people, but there's only one major hospital. There are a bunch of clinics, but like the wait times are excruciating. It's like, what if we
Yeah.
could just create clinics like that all over the place, and people could go in there and just, and it would revolutionize healthcare by making it efficient for the first time in history, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like, but we don't have and like it could objectively do better at representing people in trial and things like that, like the white collar jobs, basically. And then I imagine, now this can be a little bit dystopian and a little scary, but it's like, what if like nobody has to do any jobs anymore except for service industry stuff? And I would hope we still have human teachers and things like that too. Well, then what about a world where almost nobody can get a job? And it's like, well, if we can still, like, if we just rethink the way we do things, and people are provided for on some sort of like universal basic income or whatever, then are people just gonna sit around doing drugs and watching porn? Well, that is a possibility, but maybe people
For
will
some, for sure.
maybe people will actually become craftsmen again, or just reach out and be actively engaged with their community again, or do what I do, which this isn't a real job, but it is my job, and
Right.
so I'm not actually, because like right now people live to work and they work themselves to death, and it's pathetic. So what if it's not like that anymore? It's going to be radically different, but it's not going to be like that anymore. I'm just not pessimistic. So
Yeah, I try to believe in my personal beliefs on it, or I want to believe on the optimistic front, where AI is going to free us up to do the things that we actually want to do, or the things that we want to put our real effort and time into, instead of a dead end job, where you're timed in the bathroom, between rushing boxes to the Amazon conveyor or whatever. It's it can fill so many roles. Like, imagine how much time it takes a doctor to look through textbooks for trying to diagnose some difficult rare thing, and put chat gpt to that, and you can get results back in seconds, because it can refer to all of the textbooks that exist within under 10 seconds or whatever, and get back to the doctor with options for a diagnosis, where it can focus their efforts a lot quicker, and they won't spend as much time that the patient has left to live, researching this condition, trying to find a cure or a treatment for it. That's where I would like AI app implementation to go, where we use it as kind of a co-pilot to take care of all the heavy lifting that we are not good at. Like, and they're already using it in some cases, where they put, I think they pitted cancer or tumor diagnosis by like radiology. They pitted a computer against a series of radiologists, and the computer was like 50% better at diagnosing tumors and small small cysts and things like that than the people were. And so what they can do for us is, it takes care of the heavy screening, and frees up the radiologist to just look through a few focused possibilities, rather than the entire possibility set
or
of somebody's diagnosis.
or we can have like maybe generally about the same number of people in healthcare, but they do something different, which is which is do the human one-on-one sort of thing with patients, rather than acting more like a mechanic in the doctor's office, which is
maybe they're
quite a lot of what happens.
Yeah, I would think that. Well, and even the AI can do the counseling bit of a doctor visit fairly well. I mean, back in the '60s, they had that. I forget what the name of the bot was, but there was a typist, or like a text type interface, where the researcher's secretary sometimes would sit in there for hours chatting with the computer, and kicked him out at from time to time, so that she could talk to this robot. I forget the name of it, but it's been the human ability to project their delusions onto other things is pretty remarkable. You probably see it all the time.
The New I didn't listen to it, but the New York Times, their daily podcast last week, they had an episode about, I think it was a woman. She basically fell in love with Chat. I don't know if it was Chat GPT or not. I thought it was, but it was some sort of AI that she talked to. And it even, like, the description of the episode said that she was like having sex with it. I don't even know what the hell that means, but because computers, they don't even have disk drives anymore. So I don't know what exactly they're, but yeah, that I guess I can
USB 3.0, baby.
3.0. I do
Or
have
whatever.
3 other people waiting, and I
Okay.
have to go in about 20 minutes for some.
All right. Sorry to take up so much time, but I appreciate your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
It literally constantly shuffles the order of the guests, so I don't know who was first. And this person's not even there.
Hello?
Oh, hi. Your thing is spinning, so I don't know if anybody can hear you. Usually they can't.
Can you hear me in the chat?
We will wait for chat to confirm. Oh, they can hear you. That's weird.
Okay, I'll drop.
No, they can hear you.
Oh, they can. Okay. Christ
Yeah.
is king, ladies and gentlemen in the audience.
Oh, okay.
So the identity claims that Jesus made with authority in the Bible.
Why do you believe the claims, even though we don't even know who wrote them down or what the original claims were? That would be my question.
I believe the claims because of the mountain of evidence that supports the understanding of Jesus as the creator.
Such as
the resurrection of Jesus Christ with the testimonial evidence that we have, and the self-identity claims made with authority in the Bible.
Well, there aren't any of those, but so time out. So because somebody said so 2,000 years ago is all it takes for you to believe that somebody resurrected?
Do you not think testimonial evidence is evidence?
The question is that all it takes for you to believe that?
Some sort of evidence to have some sort of belief to be true. Yeah, I would require some sort of evidence. Is that sufficient evidence?
You're shifting the goalpost in a very weird way.
Evidence sufficient enough to hold a belief?
You gotta settle down. Is testimony given 2,000 years ago enough for you to believe that somebody resurrected?
Is that alone enough? If 3 guys say 2,000 years ago, Jim Bob, no, of course
you
not.
said that was the strongest evidence.
That would be the strongest evidence in line with other evidences. You understand? So it's not just this one thing of some Muslim comes to me and says.
But the other thing you said had nothing to do with the resurrection. So I'm just asking you: is somebody said so 2,000 years ago? Is hearsay good enough for you to believe that a resurrection happened?
I already answered. Of course not. That wouldn't be sufficient enough. And I told you why, right? So if one person says this thing occurred, I'm not going to take that as something that occurred, especially something that goes against physical laws like a resurrection.
Yeah.
That would be ridiculous to believe.
I agree.
That'd be a ridiculous belief to have. But now when you have the overwhelming evidence of not one person, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, but an entire village. I know villages of 500 people, 300 people, right? So when we have a whole village saying that this thing occurred,
what are you talking about?
The resurrection.
What village saw this happen?
I'm reciting the 500 witnesses stated in, I think it's Paul.
Right. So Paul said that somebody told him that 500 people saw this. So is somebody saying to somebody else that 500 people saw this? I mean, I don't know how that counts as overwhelming evidence, because we don't have a testimony of 500 people. We just have a person saying that a person told them that 500 people saw this. Another huge problem with this, let's say that there are 500 people that saw this. It's very odd that only the Gospels and Paul talk about this. The idea that no other contemporary person in that period would have told that story, and then anybody else would have talked about it. I mean, this would have been the most remarkable thing that had ever happened, and yet the evidence is completely lacking, except in these few instances. If somebody's making it up, then you're going to find the incident talked about. But if it really happened, so like, for example, with Muslims, they say, I say to them, here's how I know your book is false. It says the moon split in half. Everybody on the planet would have seen that happen, and they would have never stopped talking about it. So, but then they say, well, no, it was witnessed and talked about. Yeah, in your book. That's almost circular reasoning in that. And then like in Matthew, it says that the graves opened up and the saints went up and walked around. Again, the idea that that could have happened, but it's talked about nowhere else, just makes it sound way too absurd.
You think we can come to, with a certain level of evidence, to a level of certainty, not this is maximally likely, but certainty.
When it comes to this sort of thing, if we can ever know that miracles happen, then we could start talking about increasing the likelihood that this really did happen. Until then, I'm going to take this with as many grains of salt as every single mythology, from Zeus and Odin to Horus to the dragon myths in some other culture, some other place in the world throughout history, which would be enough salt to kill me, probably.
What you just said gave great insight, because what you said is no matter the amount of evidence, even though it might be more likely in the case of we experience a miracle, so now we can acknowledge this miracle might be more true, right? You said we can't come to certainty, so there's always going to be a level of faith in what you hold your beliefs in. Right. So when you're asking me, how do I believe this
not
thing
exactly
with certainty, and I give you sufficient evidence,
it's not
and you
sufficient,
say, that's not
because we
sufficient
don't
enough for me to believe in certainty.
It's not
but
enough
you
for
don't
you
even
either.
believe certainty can be accessed.
It's
so
not,
you're always going to be
Kai,
on
it's
this
not enough
level
for you
of
either,
you need
because you
faith.
don't believe in any mythology or religion except your own.
When you say believe in mythology, I believe that the Quran exists as a text.
Yeah, but you don't think that he ascended to heaven on a Pegasus and split the moon in half?
No, I don't believe some of the doctrine, because I have reasons to believe that would be a false prophet, for example. I'm not going to get into that. That's not this live. But
I have reasons to believe that there's
why.
no such things as prophets, because I don't believe in magic or supernatural forces. They've never been demonstrated to be real. And what I was really saying is, until somebody can demonstrate that those things are real, then we can talk about increasing the likelihood that the historical claims of them are real is warranted.
Okay, so what is real is what corresponds with reality with you, right?
That's a pretty
what's
good
real
way
is
of
what you
putting
said.
it.
What's true is what something corresponds with reality. Something that's true is real.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, so is it impossible for miracles to correspond with reality?
No, it's not impossible
So
for
then it's
leprechauns
true,
to
and
exist
then it's
either.
real. So now we're back at the point
Holy
where
shit,
miracles
dude.
are real logically.
Is it possible
They
that
can
leprechauns
occur.
exist?
You just haven't. Pardon?
Is it possible that leprechauns exist?
Again, I'm not. That's such a red herring.
It's
okay?
not,
That's
because
such a
you know
red
that they
herring
can exist. So
leprechaun
then I'm just
argument.
going to say, therefore they do exist. Like, what are you talking about?
You're granting the possibility if this thing occurs, in what manner, right? If someone has a miracle in front of you, if someone has a miracle on a movie, you talking about CGI before, if you witnessed the CGI miracle, right? I'm just pointing out that this is possible. No matter the amount of evidence I bring to you, and we wouldn't be sufficient enough for you to even reach certainty. So of course you're going to rely on faith to a certain extent, especially in the way you're approaching this is, yeah, no matter the overwhelming evidence supporting this deity as Jesus Christ, as the God. And that's why I asked you,
Overwhelming evidence. No.
that's why I asked you, on what authority are you denying the identity claims Jesus makes? What authority does your negation serve?
I'm not giving you any authoritative claim. He just never did it.
Okay, so your opinion on the negation holds no authority to the identity claim of Jesus. That's what you're saying. You're saying not.
I don't know
authority to the identity claim that Jesus Christ made.
What I'm telling you is that the claim is bullshit.
So who's right though? If you have no authority, if he says I am, right, and you say you're
I'm telling
not,
you that claim is false.
Who
I'm
holds
not
authority
telling
in
you
your
that he
worldview?
really did say he is and that I don't believe him. I'm telling you the claim is interpreted completely incorrectly.
But you understand what I'm saying is you have no authority on grounding that you're at all correct, even with your
That's
absence
not
of
my
certainty.
That's not
So-
you're completely misunderstanding my criticism. So like for example, Jesus says before Abraham I am. The phrase in Greek in there is just ego eimi, which can be a divine declaration, but literally later in I don't know if it's that same chapter, but I know it's the same gospel. Some random person is asked, "Hey, are you so and so?" And guess what he says? Ego eimi, I am. So it's just, but also it's just such a nebulous thing. Before Abraham, I am. What the hell does that mean? Like, what could that possibly mean? Adam existed before Abraham, so Jesus is Adam. It just doesn't really mean anything.
Well, that's without the Holy Spirit, right? So obviously your interpretation will be deemed incorrect there, Planet. But hey, thanks for
Are
having
you telling me
man.
that I don't have the Holy Spirit, so I'm incapable of interpreting it correctly?
I would say your denial of the Holy Spirit as a truth is impacting the correct
The
interpretation.
theme today
or your
is
worldview.
circular reasoning. Because, Peterson, you don't accept that it's true, therefore you will not be able to know that it's true. Therefore, you're wrong. This is just, holy crap.
Hey, that's the truth, man. You gotta tap him with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, you betcha.
All right, brother. You have a good one, man.
Oh man, what was that at the end there? Man.
Hello? Testing,
What up? What up, Quack?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm fine.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know what that was. Anyways, I watched.
Either.
That was a spectacle to behold. That's a clip. But I was watching. I didn't get to finish the video, but where he laid out this argument about John the Baptist from a book you read, where it's like,
Yeah, the book's called Zealot. That's where I first heard about the way John the Baptist's story was gradually sort of well, his character was just decreased in significance.
yeah, that's the argument, right? It's that there's kind of an evolution or a de-evolution of John the Baptist.
Yeah, and an elevation of Jesus.
Yeah. So I'm kind of sensitive to those arguments. I don't mean sensitive in a good way, but like, I don't know if, have you heard of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst?
Yeah, I know about him. I don't think I've really ever read any of his stuff.
I have. So like I actually went through like a period of doubt. I almost left Christianity because of it, where like I read Carl Jung. He's very persuasive, right? Like his whole thesis is that, you know, we all share this collective unconscious, and that all these like motifs we see in like pagan religions and including Christianity, they come from our unconscious mind. And he came to this conclusion by analyzing the dreams of his patients. And he's like, huh, that sounds a lot like this pagan myth. What if there's a similarity there? And so his whole thesis is that religion is just a means of self-actualization, all just a way of doing therapy on ourselves, right? So here's the problem I have with Jung, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, especially modern biblical scholarship, right? Is that they make mountains out of molehills. What Jung would do is he would like cherry pick pieces of evidence, like data points that fit his theory, and ignore the stuff that didn't fit his theory. And so like he said, for instance, you know, Jesus is an archetype, a symbol of the self, of our potential, of who we could become, right? Just like the Buddha is. And we know this because both of them have a miraculous birth, meaning both emerged from the unconscious mind. Jesus was born of a virgin. The Buddha came out of his mother's side. If you actually read the story of, you know, how the Buddha came to be, I guess in the Pali Canon, there's an elephant that's involved, like a white elephant. I don't remember the whole details, but I just know like he just like popped out of her like freaking alien or something like that, like a xenomorph. Something like that. I think it's just an obscure reference to C-section. Maybe that's what it is, but it became legendary. And his mom died from it, and she wasn't a virgin either. But it's like he took the parts of it that fit his theory, and he ignored everything else. Like what matters there are the differences, right? And so it's a phenomenon. It's called parallelomania. And you can look this up. And so Jung's case was a special case of that. And so when I hear arguments like, oh, you know, John the Baptist, you know, he has this sort of evolution to the Gospels, like, or de-evolution, and Jesus has this evolution where he becomes God. Like, I think that's the argument Bart Ehrman puts forward in his book, How Jesus Became God. Like, I see the same sort of ideas again, the same sort of methodology, where these kinds of scholars are just like taking evidence that supports the theory and ignoring the stuff that doesn't. And so, yeah, I wanted to push back a little bit on that. And we can go into each individual like verse as well.
Did you know that Alex O'Connor pretty recently did an entire episode on John the Baptist?
No, I did not.
I watched some of it, but not all of it. I mean, I'd just point you to that because he's talking to a professional scholar who studies John the Baptist, and he's a very Alex says that John the Baptist is kind of like the most mysterious figure in the Bible because he's so incredibly important in it, but we also know almost nothing about the guy, you know. But he is, John the Baptist is talked about by Josephus, I believe, as well. I'm pretty sure, at least. But
passing reference, I mean, yeah, I think people overstate the evidence in favor, or overstate the importance of Josephus. I think Josephus is just giving like a third, fourth, fifth hand account of something he heard. Oh yeah, there's this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean that's what I think the Gospels are too. But
fair enough.
no, but I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what to tell you. I guess I just think that if you read, I have notes on this somewhere in my Google Docs. But if you read the Gospels in the order that people believe they were written, that John's character and his interaction with Jesus keeps getting lessened in the later Gospels. In fact, I don't even think that John baptizes Jesus in the Gospel of John. And the whole what is it? I'm not sure if the the clouds open up and God speaks and he says, "You are my beloved son. On this day I have begotten you." That's also changed. And, the hypothesis on that is that they were trying to exalt Jesus and there were inconveniences in the early story. So it's like, well, Jesus gets baptized by John the Baptist. So in the later Gospels, John the Baptist says, no, it is you who will baptize me and all the sinners, or something like that. And they changed the narrative around what God says, because if Jesus is this eternally begotten figure, then it can't say, "Today I have begotten you." So we saw that modified in others. I don't remember a ton else, but that's the basic
gist. Yeah, I think it's a good summary. Can I just read Mark's gospel to you? I think that would help. Like just like the first part. He's being baptized.
Sure. What chapter is it? We can't hear you if you're not on the app. So if you're reading this on your phone, we can't hear you.
Yeah, never mind. I am on my phone, so I guess maybe you can pull it up and just like quickly. It's like very short too.
What chapter is it?
I think it's like chapter 1 or chapter 2. Like just he's getting baptized, and
It is. Yeah, it is. It is Mark. Wow, it's literally 2 verses. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And when he came up out of the water, immediately he saw the heavens being torn open, and the Spirit descended on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "You're my beloved Son. With you I am well pleased." Yeah, that's the specific thing that we've seen been changed, because in old manuscripts it says, "And today I have begotten you," and it got changed to that.
so I didn't know about the manuscript tradition regarding that passage, but like if you read like before that, I don't remember where it says before that. John the Baptist literally says, "Behold, there's someone coming who I am not even fit to untie their sandals." Like,
Yeah.
and of course, talking about Jesus. So it's like I feel like the case for John the Baptist de-evolution and Jesus Christ evolution is like overstated a lot, because I read that and I'm like, okay, like how is that in any way different from Matthew? You know, it's just a little bit shorter, but it's like the same idea. Oh yeah, like this guy is so awesome. Jesus is so awesome. I can't even untie his shoes. And all the gospels, like they don't exaggerate it any more than Mark does. Like in Mark, you have the full sort of evolution of that, of John the Baptist's arc.
Well, I mean, I'd have to pull it up here. Like, yeah, I mean, in Luke, the baptism is. Oh, where does it actually start? This is just talking about Herod, Zechariah. John said to the crowds coming out to be baptized by him, "You brood of viper." Well, okay, so there's a lot of stuff, but I mean, it goes on about John, but the people were waiting expectantly, and all were wondering in their hearts if John might possibly be the Messiah. John answered them, "I will baptize you with water, but one who is more powerful than I will come, the straps of whose sandals I am not worthy to untie. He will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and fire, his
That's
winnowing
awesome.
fork, so on and so forth." But then, I mean, it. So the part of this that's a lot different is it completely skips all of the stuff about, well, when all the people who were being when all the people were being baptized, Jesus was baptized too, and when he was praying, heaven opened up and the Holy Spirit descended on him bodily, like, yeah, this is almost just verbatim from Mark. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." Now Jesus himself was, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to look at my notes or just read misquoting Jesus again on that specific part. I'm not going to be able to share the details very well right here.
Yeah, and I know you don't have a whole lot of time, so I mean, I'll just wrap it up and just say, like, it's just not very compelling. Like, it's just kind of a weak sauce argument. It's like maybe there's an evolution of John the Baptist, but like I just don't see it. Like, if you read the Gospels, like I just don't get that impression. It's only if you like isolate a certain amount, a certain verse, like, excuse me, a few verses here and there, and you isolate them, and you take them out of context. It's like, oh look, see, John the Baptist is changing. Like, but if you like read the rest of the Gospel of Mark, I don't get a different image of John the Baptist in there than I do like anywhere else. You know, it's just another case of parallelomania, I would say. And also, like, the whole idea that like Mark embarrassed, the other Gospel writers were embarrassed by Mark and they try to change Mark and expand on it. Mark was the earliest. Like, again, there's no real evidence for that. It's just sort of a claim they're making. Like, I could just as easily argue that Mark came first. No, I'm sorry, not Mark came first, that Matthew came first, and that Mark is just a summary of Matthew. Because if you read through Mark and you read through Matthew, it feels like Mark is just summarizing Matthew. Like he's just abridging Matthew and taking out the parts of Matthew that would be offensive to a Gentile audience, because Matthew is noted for being like the most Jewish gospel because there's so many Jewish references in there and references to the Old Testament law. And so it seems like Mark is just like taking parts of Matthew's gospel he doesn't think the Romans would like or maybe understand, and he's like dumbing it down for them, you know. And so like I don't know that I believe that necessarily. I don't really believe one thing or another, that Mark came first or Matthew came first, but like all the evidence that they use to support their theory can very easily just be used to support the opposite. And so it's all just sort of sophistry at the end of the day. It's all just speculation. And like I don't really have any confidence in any of it, because I look at the arguments and they're just so weak sauce. But yeah, I mean, I just thought I'd give you thoughts on that. I don't know if I persuaded you at all.
I mean, I don't know. I'll have to go back and maybe reread the books I wrote, but I found my notes, and I'm not going to be able to go really all that far beyond my notes because I'm not going to be able to quote from memory anything outside of them. That's the problem with notes. You remember all the details when you write them, but then when you look back at them later, you're like, this isn't enough information. But it says in Mark, John is a prophet and mentor to Jesus. John never calls himself the Messiah, but never says that Jesus is. Matthew copies Mark almost word for word, but inserts the idea of Jesus as the one coming after me, saying Jesus will baptize him in the Holy Spirit.
That's in Matthew, you said?
Yeah, that's what my notes say here. And then refuses to baptize him at first until Jesus says that it's okay. Luke repeats the story, but mentions the baptism only in passing, just stating that Jesus was baptized, which there's like a big narrative about John being there, but the actual baptism of Jesus, there's like no dialogue really going on. It just says, and then Jesus was baptized and the clouds opened up. Luke also has a unique birth and origin story for both Jesus and John the Baptist, which people think may just have been an attempt to do like damage control or lessen the character of John. Acts, which people regard as being part 2 of the Gospel of Luke, was written in part to convince John's followers to abandon his philosophy and instead follow Jesus's specific philosophy. And then in John, the last gospel, John the Baptist has virtually no role at all except to be acknowledged as divine. And John actually this is confusing because it's John the Baptist in the Gospel of John, but John tells his followers to follow Jesus, and so he denigrates himself kind of in a way, and that's a detail that's not in any of the other gospels, and that's the latest gospel. So that's basically the framework of how do I say it, the elevation of Jesus and the sort of, you know, playing John's role down a little bit.
Yeah. So I would say like the defeater for all of that is like, can you read Mark? I found the verses. Can you read Mark 1:7-8? So chapter 1, verses 7 and 8.
And he preached, saying, after me comes he who is mightier than I, the strap of whose sandal I am not worthy to stoop down and untie. I have baptized you with water, but he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit. See, I don't know what my notes were talking about where it said that Matthew adds the one detail that Mark doesn't have. And again, I was probably just being sloppy with my note taking because I took these notes when I was reading something, and so I remember like what that was supposed to refer to, but now I don't know.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, so like I hear all that. It makes sense, just like Jung's theory of the collective unconscious makes sense. But like when you go into the details and you analyze like each point individually, it just falls apart. You realize, no, I mean, even in Mark's gospel, it doesn't explicitly say that he was nervous about baptizing Jesus, but it does say that he is unworthy to untie his sandals. And so is it a leap?
Yep.
To say that in John's gospel that, oh, he said, I'm unworthy to baptize you. Like, I don't think it's that much of a leap at all. You know?
Well, I think I'm not sure if this is what you're getting at, but I don't think that, the gospel writer Mark thought that John the Baptist was the real Messiah or anything like that. It's just that there were people that thought that. And so the story of Jesus's baptism is changed in later gospels. And then Acts has a particular motivation behind it to recruit people to Jesus and get them away from John the Baptist, who is kind of like Diogenes in some ways. It seems like just kind of lived in the wild, was very austere. Jesus was austere too, but he wasn't quite as feral as John the Baptist was.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, like the idea that there's some people who believe that John the Baptist is the Messiah. Like I think the only religious group today is like the Mandaeans, and they're still like very obscure. I don't know that the Gospels are really an apologetic against John the Baptist as the Messiah, because like they never claimed that John the Baptist claimed that. You have no evidence that John the Baptist claimed that. I think he was just like every other apocalyptic preacher at that time, who was preaching that, oh yeah, the kingdom of God is coming, the end of the world is near. Like there's a bunch of people doing that. And I don't think John the Baptist is unique in any way, except that he had a cult following and also baptized people. But I don't think from a historical perspective, it makes any sense for him to claim that he's the Messiah. And I think like some people, have made the argument, oh, in John's gospel, like he's making apologetic against John the Baptist because it says that he's not the light, that Jesus is the light. I think that's in like the first chapter of John, he makes that claim. But if you read it, like if you read John's gospel and you read the first chapter, it says like, it talks about the light of the world. Doesn't say who it is first. And then all of a sudden, John, the gospel writer of John, introduces John the Baptist. But he clarifies, oh, he's not the light. And then he introduces Jesus and says, oh yeah, that guy's the light. And it doesn't read like an apologetic. It just reads like literature. It just reads like he's building tension. Oh, who could it be? Like, oh, is it John the Baptist? No, it's not. Oh, it turns out it's Jesus. It's like, it's not really an apologetic or anything like that. And so I don't think there are any like serious groups in the first century or sects that believe John the Baptist was the Messiah, because a lot of ink would have been spilled about that, in Paul's letters or in the Gospels. But all we have are like passing references that people maybe thought he was the Messiah, or that he was Elijah, and he denied that, But again, it just feels like a mountain made out of a molehill.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to look into it. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say about it at the moment.
I mean, fair enough. I guess if there's time next week, we can go into like gospel reliability, because I feel like all the arguments against the gospels, they sound compelling, but if you dig into it, you realize it's just a bunch of hot air. It's like just hearsay, speculation, guessing. So, because we don't even know if Mark even came first. That as well is just a guess. But anyways,
yeah, I mean, we don't have time for that today. I actually have to go in like a minute, so.
All right. See you.
See ya. And yeah, I see I have 2 guests. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to talk to you today. I got stuff to do. STDs, stuffs to do.